Tonight, we return to a place not easily forgotten by time, though the years have rewritten its name. Once called Edo, now known as Tokyo, this city was more than just a collection of wooden houses and crowded lanes. It was a world built on ceremony, hierarchy, and routine. A place where silence often spoke louder than rebellion, and the flicker of fire in a neighbor's home could spell your own undoing. As you ease into sleep, allow your mind to drift through time. Let the bustle of 18th century Edo, its timber-framed streets, the smell of rice and smoke, the murmur of merchants and monks, wash over you gently. This is not a tale of war or conquest. It is a quiet unraveling of the everyday, the struggle, the structure, the hidden. So close your eyes, listen, and step back into the wooden veins of a city that has long since turned to glass. Imagine waking up to the crackling of rice straw mats underfoot, the faint scent of ash and pickled radish lingering from the night before. You're not in a palace, not in a noble manor, but in a narrow machiya house made of wood and paper, standing shoulder to shoulder with hundreds of others in a row that snakes through the heart of the city. No insulation, no privacy, no peace. You are a common townsman, a chonin, not a farmer, not a samurai, just one of the 1 million living souls squeezed into the city. Your house is little more than a frame, thin walls of washi paper and shoshi sliding doors that groan when moved. You can hear your neighbors. They can hear you. There is nowhere to hide, nowhere to truly rest. Your day begins before the sun. There is no concept of the weekend, no vacation. You rise, eat plain rice, maybe miso soup if you're lucky, and step into a world built on obligation. The roads are muddy, the air thick with wood smoke. Women wash clothes in shared water basins. Children play with toys carved from discarded bamboo. Vendors chant the names of their wares: sweet potatoes, firewood, soba noodles. As a tradesman, perhaps you craft sandals or paper umbrellas. 16 hours of steady, repetitive work, your hands calloused, your back bent. If your shop does well, your family eats. If it doesn't, you fall behind on rice tax. And in Edo, to be in debt is not only shameful, it is dangerous. Clothes are strictly regulated. A law forbids you from wearing silk unless your rank permits it. Bright colors? Reserved for the elite. Jewelry? Not for you. Even your home's architecture is restricted. Roof height, signage, wall length, all defined by status. And then there are the fires. Every few years, entire districts vanish under flames. Wooden homes, kindled by cooking stoves and open lanterns, burst like straw in the wind. Edo was called the City of Fires, and for good reason. The Great Mairiki Fire of 1657 killed more than 100,000 people, and you, as a poor townsman, own nothing that cannot burn. At night, you relieve yourself in a shared toilet with neighbors. In wealthier districts, there are wooden buckets emptied by night soil collectors who sell it to rural farmers as fertilizer. In yours, you wait your turn quietly. Meat is scarce, sometimes forbidden. Your meals are seasonal, rice-based, and mild. You cannot speak back to a samurai, not even if insulted. A slip of the tongue could mean a swift cut or worse, disappearance. And so, life passes in repetition. Rituals, hierarchies, ceremonies, but rarely joy. You live, work, sleep, burn, rebuild. Quietly, dutifully, because the city expects it. Let the weight of this world settle around you now. Its sounds, its slowness, the quiet, suffocating dignity of a life that was never truly your own. Now, let us drift upward into the halls of power, from the muddy alleyways of the commoner to the gleaming interior of Edo Castle. Behind these walls walked a man both revered and feared, not for his sword, but for his pen and peculiar passions. Shogun Tokugawa Tsunayoshi, born in 1646, the fifth Tokugawa shogun, a man molded by fortune and tragedy. His reign, from 1680 to 1709, was known not for war, but for laws, some strange, some severe, and above all, his love for dogs. They called him the Inu Kubu, the dog shogun. Tsunayoshi was born under the zodiac sign of the dog. Buddhist scholars whispered that he was fated to protect life, especially the lives of animals. Perhaps it was grief that stirred his compassion. He had lost his only son as an infant. Perhaps it was an overcorrection for violence he never committed. Whatever the reason, Tsunayoshi issued a series of edicts known as the Shuri Aweremi no Rei, the laws of compassion. These laws made cruelty to animals a punishable offense. Dogs in particular were given extraordinary protections. Killing one even accidentally could result in execution. Beating a stray could bring imprisonment. Tsunayoshi ordered the creation of vast dog shelters across the city, funded by public money. Tens of thousands of dogs lived in special compounds where they were fed and protected, while commoners struggled to afford rice. And yet, the laws didn't stop there. Human cruelty was also punished. A samurai who failed to aid a sick man on the road was exiled. A peasant who abandoned a dead relative's body was jailed. But this newfound compassion felt uneven. The poor were flogged for infractions. Nobles walked untouched. The city resented him silently. His own officials struggled to enforce the ever-expanding web of laws. Whispers in tea houses questioned his sanity. But to challenge the shogun was to challenge the heavens. Tsunayoshi died in 1709. No dogs mourned him. No peasants wept. His successors quickly repealed the dog laws, tore down the shelters, and erased his name from praise. Yet, his legacy lingers, quietly, in the way Japan treats animals, in the whisper of laws shaped not by war, but by an unshakable devotion to mercy. As the castle fades, you return to the streets, to the stillness of night, to the scent of wet wood and temple incense, and the distant, echoing bark of a dog, no longer protected by law. Beneath the street lamps and sandals, far below the tiled roofs and thatched shops, Edo hides something more mysterious than fire or class. It hides itself. Modern Tokyo, with its trains and towers, stands atop centuries of sediment. Beneath it lie rivers that no longer flow, bridges that span nothing, tunnels that lead to memory alone. In old Edo, the city was crisscrossed by hundreds of waterways. Canals carried cargo, moats ringed the shogunate. Bridges, over 300 of them, connected wards and markets. The Sumida River glistened beneath the moonlight, dotted with fishing boats and ferry shadows. But floods came often. The city, flat and low, suffered under rain and rising tide. So slowly, the city began to bury its rivers. What was once the Hibiya Inlet became pavement. The Kanda River, once wide and open, narrowed into culverts. Entire streams were covered by streets. Some flow still, now locked beneath concrete tunnels, forgotten but not gone. In the 20th century, during subway construction, workers discovered vast stone tunnels, some with no documented purpose. Rumors grew: secret escape routes for the shogun? Hidden storehouses? Passageways for spies? In Ginza, beneath shopping arcades, ancient wooden sewer lines were uncovered, perfectly preserved. In Akasaka, a temple revealed a staircase that descended nowhere, swallowed by time. These buried veins are silent now, but in heavy rains, they sometimes speak. Streets flood unexpectedly. Subways drip. The earth remembers. Let your thoughts wander downward now. Beneath the shops, beneath the stations, to the cold, dark tunnels that no one mapped, still holding the breath of a forgotten city. As you drift deeper into the quiet labyrinth of Edo life, allow your mind to follow a more hidden current, a winding path through lantern-lit alleys and behind closed wooden facades, into a world designed to soothe, distract, and release the burdens of the rigid social order. This was the realm of the Yoshiwara, the licensed pleasure quarter of Edo. Surrounded by high wooden walls and guarded gates, Yoshiwara was both a sanctuary and a stage. A place where even the strictest samurai might shed his armor of formality, at least for a night. But entry wasn't easy. It required more than coin. Etiquette, patience, and subtle performances of status were part of the ritual. One didn't simply enter Yoshiwara. One ascended toward it. Imagine yourself inside. The air is perfumed with incense and faint traces of sake. Shamisen music floats through the fog. Painted lanterns glow softly, casting long shadows on the gravel paths. This was a world of artifice and beauty, where every gesture from the pour of tea to the flick of a sleeve was choreographed to maintain the illusion of timeless, unattainable grace. The courtesans here, known as oirin, were not only companions but highly trained artists, poets, dancers, and conversationalists. Their lives, though glamorous to the outsider, were often quiet tragedies. Bound by contract from a young age, they lived in ornate confinement, performing elegance daily, while dreaming of release through patronage, retirement, or luck. The Yoshiwara also housed ukiyo-e artists, who captured this ephemeral world in woodblock prints that now sit in museums across the globe. Their scenes, lovers in mid-glance, answers frozen in fans' flutter, were windows into Edo's secret poetry. These images inspired not just locals, but centuries of global artists. Still, beneath the lace of fantasy, the real rhythm of the Yoshiwara was the same as Edo. A cycle of roles, repetition, longing, and temporary escape. Even in pleasure, the people of Edo lived by pattern. The pleasure district wasn't outside the city's order. It was a reflection of it, painted in richer tones. If you could rise above Edo and peer down from the smoky skies, you would see a city built of wood, paper, and tightly packed dreams. And you would also see the smoke again and again. Fires were not rare disasters in Edo. They were expected events, like seasonal storms. The people of Edo even had a name for the largest ones: Edo no Hana, the flowers of Edo. More than 100 major fires swept through the city over the Tokugawa period. Some burned entire districts. The Great Maireki Fire of 1657 alone claimed over 100,000 lives and reduced large swaths of the city to ash. And yet, within weeks, construction began anew. Homes were rebuilt with the same materials, in the same styles. People adapted, resigned to the cycle of creation and combustion. The reason was structural. Edo was a city of over 1 million people crammed into flimsy structures, surrounded by open flames cooking fires, lanterns, charcoal braziers. Winter winds carried sparks faster than feet could flee. And fire brigades, though brave, often had little water and few tools. Instead of dousing, they demolished, tearing down homes to create fire breaks. Even the shogunate adapted. City planning began to incorporate wide streets and firewalls. Watchtowers dotted the skyline. Roof tiles replaced straw, but the fear never left. Families kept go bags ready, neighbors trained in rescue routines. And when the bells rang out, clanging alarm across the night, everyone knew it was time to run or to fight. Fire shaped Edo's culture too. The transient nature of beauty, the art of rebuilding, the reverence for the fleeting moment. All of these grew from the ashes. And when you walk through modern Tokyo, wide boulevards and hidden shrines still whisper the memory of once blazed there. Let us turn now to the smallest citizens of Edo, the children who scurried through alleys, played beside moats, and lived within the tightly wound ropes of expectation. Childhood in Edo was short and shaped like a funnel narrowing quickly toward duty, role, and silence. For most children, formal education began at Terracotta temple schools run by Buddhist monks or private instructors. There, they learned to read, write, and calculate with abacuses. But learning wasn't always a right. It was a privilege, and often a preparation for servitude. Samurai boys studied Confucian texts and martial drills. Merchant children learned ledgers and letter writing. Daughters were taught sewing, etiquette, and silence. Apprenticeship began young. A child of a carpenter became a carpenter. A girl of a tea house learned its choreography from the moment she could walk. Life was not a canvas, but a set of instructions passed down, repeated, and rarely questioned. Ambition for many was the luxury of knowing your place and surviving within it. Yet there were moments of joy. Kite flying in spring, river games in summer, lantern festivals lighting up the narrow streets with shared wonder, ghost stories whispered by candlelight, the taste of sweet red bean paste on a rare lucky day. These were the secret threads that embroidered childhood beneath its tight weave of obedience. There were also orphans, street children, and outcasts, those outside the family systems and guilds. They survived on scraps and favors, performing chores or tricks for coins. Their lives remind us that even in a system built on order, the forgotten still drifted at the margins. Still, across every tier, childhood in Edo was a brief interlude, one that ended not with choice, but with assignment. And once it ended, the rhythm of adult life began steady, prescribed, and silent. Lastly, we arrive at the quiet fall of power. Once, the samurai were warriors, blade-wielding elite, feared in battle, and revered in stories. But Edo was not a city of war. It was a city of peace. And peace, for a warrior, is its own kind of death. In Edo, most samurai lived not on battlefields, but in paperwork. They served as scribes, tax collectors, clerks, inspectors. They lived in designated neighborhoods, wore 2 swords by law, but rarely used them. Their lives were rigid. Tea ceremony practice at dawn, writing edicts in careful brush strokes, etiquette drills, poetry recitals, moral lectures. Their wives wore subdued colors. Their sons studied Confucian texts. Some still trained in martial arts. But their bodies softened, their bellies grew, and their minds dulled with routine. A samurai who showed too much ambition risked suspicion. A samurai who showed too little lost face. They walked a narrow path of honor without action, of duty without purpose. Some grew restless. Some drank. Some wrote haiku about leaves and silence. Imagine being raised to fight and told never to draw your sword. And yet the city needed them as quiet enforcers, as symbols, as reminders. Their homes were larger, but not luxurious. Their meals finer, but never extravagant. They lived longer, perhaps, but in stillness. And so, the samurai of Edo became something else entirely. Keepers of order, protectors of paper, ghosts of a war that would never come. As you drift now into sleep, remember the rhythm of their lives, the tea, the calligraphy, the silence, and the long, slow fading of a class bred for war, into a world that had no use for it. Edo was not an easy place to live. It was structured, beautiful in form, but harsh in reality. Its people were patient, quiet, and often unseen by history. But in their world, the narrow streets, the buried rivers, the dogs of the shogun, the weary samurai, there was meaning, repetition, a strange kind of order. As you sleep now, far from fire and flood, far from silk laws and curfews, let your body settle. You have visited a place where everything had its place, and nothing could escape it. Oyasuminasai, or good night.